Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Jerome with the Chamber of Commerce, and today we have a outstanding group of panelists here convened to discuss the Paycheck Protection Program and how to deal with loan forgiveness, how to move your loan into grant phase. It's a little bit complex, so we have, I think, an excellent group of panelists to help walk us through that. We have Arlene Carroll, who I'm very happy to introduce first for two reasons. One, not only is she with WestStar Bank, but also she's our incoming chair at the Chamber. So Arlene, welcome.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you here today. I'm also going to introduce Leila Melendez from the Workforce Borderplex. She's the CEO there. I don't know if I can call you current anymore, Leila, but I think your feet are under the desk officially at this point, but it's very nice to have you here today. Thank you.
Thanks.
We also have Mara here from WestStar Bank. She is the Vice President of Compliance and obviously very specially equipped to help us get through this subject today. So Mara, welcome.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, a dear friend of mine and also a colleague and attorney here in El Paso to help with those kinds of issues on the loan forgiveness program, we have Steve Ortega. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, David. Proud to be part of this group.
Yes, it's excellent. Well, let me just say this first off, just about this. The Paycheck Protection Program was part of the CARES Act. I think everybody knows that. And it was designed to help us get through and help businesses particularly get through some of the pressures created by COVID-19. And what we're really wanting to look at here today is ways in the different questions and ideas, most up-to-date ways, particularly too, because it's changed a few times with the Department of Treasury and the Small Business Administration here. But how do we go ahead and make sure that you are able to forgive the loan and shift into a grant? It's a big question, and I think worth chatting about. And it also dovetails well, I think, with where the Chamber has been on this. We have, we're the largest business group in town, and we are very much committed to helping business during this COVID-19. We've done a lot of different things. They're all on our website and certainly available to you. We're happy to discuss anything we can do to help. But this one's very timely because as I understand it, we could be looking at and Arlene, I'll let you answer this one. We could be looking as early as mid-August for the ability to start the process of loan forgiveness. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Well, listen, why don't we do this to kick things off, because I'm going to call on each of you to talk a little bit, and then we'll take some questions. But the first one is, Steve, you went through the process yourself as a small business owner as well. What was that like?
You know, David, I had, of course, back in the spring, had heard about the program and thought, you know what, business-wise, I'm doing okay. I really don't need it. But then talked to some friends, and they said, no, you need to think about applying for this. You don't know what business is going to be like in the future. And I'm glad I took their advice. I actually went through Mara and Arlene's business over with WestStar, and they did an excellent job of walking me through the process. I was initially given a packet of information for me to fill out as it related to my business, employees, costs, payroll, etc. It took me about an hour to fill out, turn that information into WestStar, and a couple of weeks later, I had the check, and it was a godsend because, sure enough, about 2-3 weeks later, business did start to decline, and that was in alignment with the surge that we had in COVID cases here in El Paso. Thankfully, business is coming back up, but as everyone knows, the future is uncertain. And so certainly the PPP loan, or I hope grant for me, was very helpful, beneficial, helped my business, helped my employees. And I'm thankful that it was put forth, and want to thank the local institutions, in particular WestStar, because my experience with them was excellent.
Well, that's an excellent segue to WestStar. Actually, I will say this. I think at the height of the crisis, we were getting about 1,000 phone calls a month for help. 600 of them, I think, we sent over to WestStar to give an idea. And just because the huge number of requests for help, And WestStar obviously did such a wonderful job in processing those loans. From the bank's perspective, both Tamara and Arlene, what was it like for you guys as this started to roll in? When PPP was started, what was it like for you?
Well, you know, when this whole process started, Rick Francis, he said, you know, without question, we are going to get the PPP loans going here at our bank and make it happen. And so we pulled all of the employees together, getting a team together to get the application process going and getting it streamlined. And I'm just really proud of the fact of how quickly we all came together. And at the end of the day, WestStar was able to lend out $262 million to the community. I believe it was over 1,600 borrowers or applicants, and we were able to preserve 42,000 jobs in our community. And so I can tell you from a personal standpoint in processing these applications, it was the months of April and May were a blur. I don't quite remember them. We got several, like I said, several hundred done. And Mata was part of our quality team to review all the applications that came through to ensure that everything is categorized correctly, to where when we got to the point where we're looking at the forgiveness process, there aren't any surprises, and to where that we can review and make sure that hoping most of the money that was borrowed can be turned into a grant.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Before I turn to the compliance side of this, Mara, I just wanted to ask Leila if I could. How is this impacting the work, the excellent work that you folks do at Workforce?
Thanks, David. So we've been fielding quite a bit of calls, really just like business advice for really small businesses with what to do with their employees. You know, before the loan, whether they have the loan or not, they're wanting to know, you know, even though I may be able to afford being able to carry some employees, what should I be planning for? How should I be treating those employees? And it's really a case-by-case basis. I mean, a business owner, each business knows their model and knows their market and what they're trying to accomplish. So we've been trying to provide as just, you know, customized advice as we can to each business, and not do just, you know, a one-size-fits-all approach. We're really asking businesses to really, you know, reflect on their business and what they can sustain and what is really necessary for them, and to consider their model. What do they need, not only to survive the very short term, but how they start to work on the return, the economic recovery, and then long term. And it's really hard for businesses to think, you know, 2 weeks from now. And that's where we're trying to help them. One is reattracting some of their employees back. There's multiple reasons for that. One of that has been the unemployment benefits. The other is the crisis itself. Some employees and some businesses, they're in a high customer environment, and those employees aren't eager to return to that. You know, and in other cases, businesses, they can only hire, you know, one person back for now. And, you know, we're hearing from employees as well. We're trying to encourage folks to upskill and to get into some training and stuff. And they're saying, no, I'm expected to go back. As soon as my employer calls, I'm going back. Well, those employers aren't necessarily calling as quickly as we thought they were. So it's really a mixed bag of all of the different things that we're seeing. Just really depends on the economy and the model that they're in.
Yeah, I think, you know, the unemployment insurance, for example, has had a bizarre impact at one level. I think we had to do what we had to do, but I know that's a big debate right now. I certainly hope that something is done, but I've had more than one small business. We digress a bit from the PPP, but I've had more than one small business member lament with me the inability to find employees at the moment. It's not easy. Which is sort of funny in the middle of a global pandemic. But anyway, we are where we are. Maybe if I could, I'd switch a little bit to the details of the loan forgiveness. Maybe I can start with our our banker colleagues a little bit. Is there anything that you would recommend, and we can get more detail on various points as maybe you cover them, but is there anything at a high level, let's start there, maybe 50,000 feet, that you recommend to businesses as they look at the loan forgiveness side of PPP? Mara?
Mara, did you want to chime in on that one?
Sure. At a high level, I would very recommend that businesses document, that they document their payroll expenses, how they're paying their clients, bank records, 941s, everything they're using the money for, to document how they're paying the utilities, rental income, mortgage interest, everything that the program requires us to use the money for. Document, have the proof. That is the easiest way. Get with your bookkeeper, your CPA. If you're a small business, keep records of how you're paying these bills, and it'll make the process a lot more streamlined.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it needs to reconcile with what they borrowed the money for, which was to cover your payroll plus the eligible expenses. And so the main thing is just make sure that you provide the supporting documentation for that.
Excellent. I'm told that there's when we look at the law, which is, we lobby on these things, obviously, but for a small business. And but as we look at these things, I'm told there's 3 key elements, if we delve into a little bit more detail around how to get this loan forgiveness. In other words, shift this PPP into a grant. First one is to determine the maximum amount of possible loan forgiveness based on expenditures in what they call a 24-week after the loan's made kind of process. The next thing, and you guys can delve in and weigh in on any of these points, but I just thought I'd get them out there so they're in one place for our viewers. Also, determine the amount of anything by which the maximum loan forgiveness will be reduced because of, let's say, employment differences or salary and wage differences. And then finally, apply the 60% rule that requires that at least 60% of eligible loan forgiveness expenses go towards payroll costs. Is that accurate? Is that still what we're doing? Go ahead.
David, just before we get into that, I wanted to expound on a point that Arlene and Mara made, and it's something that was very helpful to me. Once I got the loan, I actually opened up a separate bank account specifically for PPP, and I started a tab sheet that had date, expenditure, amount, so that I had very explicit records concerning what PPP was being used for, and down the road, if I need any documentation, checks, etc., that's all recorded. So I'm not intermingling any PPP monies with my traditional business checking and savings account. I'm keeping everything separate and also keeping very close records to make sure that all expenditures are authorized under the program. So my goal, and I think most people's goal, is to try to get as much of the loan transition to a grant. And I found that extraordinarily helpful. As a matter of fact, just last week, I closed out my bank account for PPP because the funds were exhausted.
Excellent. Well, I also understand that Treasury and Small Business Administration have recently passed a change that if the amount is less than 150, is that right, or 180, that it's forgiven? Is that, where are we on that? Do you know?
I'll take that. That's one of the items that is pending, that we're hoping that gets passed for smaller businesses. If your loan is $150,000 or less, a single page attestation would need to be filled out. It hasn't passed yet.
That's right. It's not signed by the president yet. You're right.
We're hoping that it will come soon, because that will relieve the burden off of a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, I think they're calling it the HEROES Act now versus the CARES Act, and I think it's pretty close to being done. So fingers crossed, right? So we could have a payroll protection plan part 2 with a lot less onerous loan forgiveness. But if we talk about those 4 points, is there anything special about 24 weeks that that you guys would recommend to think about, or any ways to calculate that you think is important? Just, or it would make it easier for you as the bank, let's say? Or is that just pretty straightforward?
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the whole reason for the 24-week process was because, as you know, that the recipients of the loans, the requirement was that they get their employees back to work, and they were having a hard time doing that, and they couldn't exhaust all the funds within the 8-week period, and so that's why we have this, the 24-week process was put into place. And again, I mean, that's really basically the reasoning behind it. And as far as the bank's concerned, and Mata, you can chime in to support what I'm saying or add to it, again, the most important thing is just during this 24-week process, you've got some extra time, and it's just to make sure that you have all the proper documentation to back up your expenses. Which is your 941s along with all of your eligible expenses. It's document.
Absolutely. Well, if there's one thing I'm getting from this conversation, yes, document. I think that's absolutely clear. Another element of this reduction that I know is see how any kind of reductions in salaries and wages impact this amount. I'm given to understand it's 25%. Is that right? Is that a threshold in this? So determine forgiveness reduction based on reductions in salaries and wages of more than 25%. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is there something somebody can do if they take it below 25%?
There are safe harbors that are provided by the guidance. For example, if you reduce your employees by more than 25% or salaries, the deadline, you can, as long as you bring them back by December 31st of this year, that will be a safe harbor. If it was reduced because employees quit or you offered them their job back and they declined, as long as we have documentation that you offered employees to rehire them and they were and that they didn't want to come back, that can also be used as a safe harbor. If you were on some of them, these are a little bit more intricate. For example, if you're unable to open your business because of CDC guidelines, that would also be an element of a safe harbor, but that gets a little bit into the weeds. But
yes,
basically there are options.
I think a little bit in the weeds is okay right now. I think there might be questions. Like, for example, you had mentioned that if somebody dips below that 25% reduction of wages and salaries, because somebody resigns, they have to bring them back. Try to hire somebody back, right?
Right.
What if they let somebody go?
That is also, so for example, if you let somebody go for, in a normal course of business, not because of the pandemic or any economic crisis, but because they were not performing, as long as that is documented also, that would also fall under the safe harbor.
And are you allowed to reorganize without firing for cause, or is it too much in the weeds?
That's a little bit too much in the weeds. I would have to look into that for you. Yes,
fair enough. Fair enough. Any other thoughts on that part? Let's say the step 2, determining any other thoughts? I think we covered that one pretty well. What about the 60%? What is the 60% rule? This idea that I think it's the way it's phrased here is a borrower's maximum loan amount could also be reduced if the borrower's eligible non-payroll expenses exceed 40% of total eligible expenses.
Right. So your eligible non-payroll expenses are, for example, mortgage interest or your rent or utilities associated with your business. So the regulation says that you have to use only 40% of your total PPP funds. So 60% should be allocated to your payroll costs, to covering all your payroll costs, and 40% to those other expenses.
I think that's excellent. I know this is in the weeds a little bit, but I think a lot of viewers of this will want to know some of these questions. So I do appreciate you allowing me to go through it. I'm not trying to be too detailed, but I think some will help folks as they have some of these questions. I think for the panel, as we sort of think about this, is there anything else on the loan forgiveness that, let's say in the context of documenting, obviously, but as we think about these steps we sort of discussed, is there anything else that a person or individual that was trying to get through this loan forgiveness process could do to facilitate that or make it easy?
David, one of the things that I've done is, because the rules are still evolving, you hear rumors, you hear certain scenarios where things are forgiven or exacerbated. I would just keep in regular contact with the point of contact for the institution that processed the loan. And so from time to time, I will call my representative over at the bank just to get the latest information, as this is something that is evolving. Just to stay on top of it. You may miss something on the news, or you may have heard a bad piece of information. But the individuals that I've been working at the bank have been excellent with keeping me updated once I give them a call and say, what about this? What about that? So I would encourage everyone to stay on top of information with the local bank that processed your loan.
Yeah, like, as far as WestStar is concerned, we're making it easier for our customers to where we have a link that we're finishing up on, to where we're going to be forwarding that to our customers, to where they can fill out the PPP forgiveness application online, upload the supporting documentation online, submit it to the bank, and then our quality control area will review it and make sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And from what I understand right now is that once all that information is submitted to the bank, that the bank's going to hold on to it, because we're just at the mercy of the SBA. It's very fluid right now, and I believe they said like towards the middle of the month that the SBA will be able to open up their portals to receive the applications for forgiveness, but you never know. But at least during the meantime, we're reviewing everything to ensure that everything's correct. And so that link, we were doing a trial run on it, and we're through that phase right now. We're almost through that phase, and so within the next couple of weeks, our clients will be getting the link.
And is the SBA, Arlene, giving you any sense as to how long it'll take to actually process the forgiveness once the link is open?
Mata?
They have, I believe it's 90 days to process the application. So it's kind of up in the air. They could take those 90 days to process the application after it gets submitted.
So we could be looking at November-ish kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Institutions have 60 days. So probably well until next year, depending on when they begin. So a bank has 60 days to review the application, and SBA has 90 days after that.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit of time before the dust settles if you start the process in, let's say, October. But I think, Steve, you gave great advice. Stay in touch with our lending officials, and as long as it's not too much volume over at the bank, I think, as long as we can ask some questions there. Watch this video, obviously, hopefully that will help you. Before I think we sign off, because I think I covered all the questions I saw, but I just wanted to ask Leila, is there anything else from the Workforce Borderplex perspective that you'd like to share with the group during this time that may not be particularly or specifically on point with PPP, but just generally good practice to think about right now?
Yeah, I think businesses, I know at the onset of the pandemic, and it was just everything was just so fast moving, but I would really encourage businesses and business owners to have a conversation with their staff before they make a decision whether they they make a decision to let go of employees or rehire employees, is have a very open and honest conversation about what the need is, right? So if you're not able to sustain a person full time anymore, before you take an action, just tell them like, what can you work? What hours are where's the breaking point? If I have to reduce your hours, consider that first before completely, wiping out your workforce. Because those employees have to deal with their unemployment, and that system isn't easy, unfortunately. So moving back and forth from employment to unemployment, reemployment, back and forth, that is very daunting as well. And then, when they get to a point where they think they can start to hire folks back, is again, have that conversation with those folks. They may call their previous employees back, but the schedules may not be the same. The hours may not be the same. Even the work that they're having to do may not be the same. Complete, honesty and transparency, and say, look, maybe I used to have you for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and you were doing this. I can only do now maybe 5 hours a day, but you've got to do a little bit differently. The business has changed a little bit, and now we need you to take this on a little bit. So I think that there needs to be that conversation so that the business is, is honest about what that expectation is, but then it also gives the employee, a decision point. Do I take this and knowing that this isn't everything that it used to be, or do I just stay and start looking for something else? And so I encourage that. And then I also want to just let employers know that aside from, from the loan, like what Steve said, is make sure that you go to credible sources, go directly to the agencies and ask the questions that you need to ask. Don't take the neighbor's case as your case. My neighbor got this, or this person, this happened to them. Why can't it apply to me? Everybody's different, but make sure that you go to credible sources. But we have at the Workforce Board, there's several resources that we have to help businesses and helping you find people that are able and willing and ready to go to work. Two, we might have some availability of resources to help you, especially those businesses that maybe now know that they have to convert into some digital world. They're gonna have to need to do a website. They're gonna have to take card payments, maybe even online types of things. If they've come to that point, we actually have money available for that, for like a digital transformation to help those businesses do that. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us. David knows where you all can reach us, but there's a wide range of additional resources that businesses can get their hands on.
Very true. And I think you guys have some usually for small business, you have two problems, right? It's COVID has only accelerated them, not taken them away. In so much is that access to capital is one, and the other one is, of course, gaps in your knowledge base. And so this particular video should help with both. And so if you have questions around how to get PPP, Arlene and Mara at WestStar are our absolute best. And if you have questions about specific business issues and how to deal with them, not only can WestStar help obviously there, but this is clearly in the wheelhouse of the chamber and workforce. And so we work well, I think, in those areas also. And you can find this video, I will say, we're going to post it on what we call EPC TV, which is the El Paso Chamber's television station on YouTube. We have some 60 videos. We'll feature this one for a while, so you'll be able to see it. And we encourage you to go back and check it more than once if you need, especially since we covered some detailed items. And with that, I would just say, Arlene, Mara, Steve, do you have anything you want to finish with?
I just want to thank you for giving myself and WestStar the opportunity to be able to participate in this meeting today. And WestStar is here for the community. And if for some reason there needs to be a second round of PPP, WestStar will be there to help out.
Outstanding. Well, you guys did an absolutely fabulous job. And when I think about the fact that 42,000 jobs were protected by what you folks did with PPP in this market, clearly El Paso is very lucky to have WestStar. And so thank you. And we're lucky to have you on our board. So thank you also for that. Steve, anything for you before we wrap up?
That's it, David. We were talking a little bit before this about businesses having questions about succession, estate planning, et cetera. I would just encourage all the business owners out there, review your business operating agreements. Through COVID, people are thinking about mortality. So just make sure those documents are up to date. And then if you have any questions, go see an estate planning attorney. I want to thank the folks at WestStar. They were awesome with me, and encourage the viewers, if they ever have any questions as it relates to these issues, WestStar is a great resource. And then I personally worked with Leila for many years, and she does an awesome job over at Workforce. And of course, want to thank the Chamber for offering this as a forum to the community.
Well, with that, thank you, folks. And I wish you a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for your time today, and we will talk again soon. Thanks. Bye now.
Thank you.